Billie Groom, your host on All About Animals Radio. And I'm back again, or I should say more accurately, Tom's back again with us. Tom from Breaking the Chains. We're so interested in everything that you're doing over in Ukraine. I guess you're in Turkey, a couple different places working with the people and the animals. Thank you so much for taking this time to join us again, Tom.
No, once again, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's just dive right in, and it's a situation over there, right? You've got problems with the weather, and Mother Nature's not necessarily making life easier, and the war. So tell us where you've been hanging out, in what areas.
Yeah, so the thing with Ukraine at the moment is obviously same with any war. You kind of like you hear soldiers refer to it as fighting seasons. And what that means is basically there's certain seasons of the year where obviously fighting's more intense and more fierce than others. So winter months, especially in cold countries like obviously Ukraine, what happens there is tank movement stops, large vehicle movement stops across like open ground, stuff like that. They're stuck to main supply routes, i.e. what that means is basically main MSRs, so main motorways, main roads, because trying to go across country, the vehicles will get bogged in. So what that generally does is it kind of slows down the intensity of the war, which is always a positive. It's a positive for civilians. And it's kind of like a recoup and a regeneration time for both, obviously, armed forces, so the Russians and the Ukrainians. And you'll hear constantly all over the news about the spring offensive, the spring offensive, the spring offensive. And that's because that's when obviously the open ground will obviously start to settle, so tanks and stuff can start to move it. So that's when you'll end up with that huge surge, which will sort of like the next couple of weeks, it'll start to go. In the last sort of like 3 months, it's been all over the news. A big key area has been over to the east, where they've been fighting around Bakhmut, Soledar. You'll hear a lot of that all over the news. Bakhmut's almost encircled at the moment now, which means the Ukrainians are pulling out of it, so the Russians will slowly take that. So we basically we concentrated a lot before these like around Christmas and beginning of January, over to the east around Bakhmut, around those villages there, getting supplies in, not just for the animals, but obviously for the people, because the winter months are harsh. So we need to sustain the people in order to sustain the animals. So it's like I was actually speaking about earlier to somebody, there's a common theme in animal abuse and like animal neglect. Now, I'm not saying that the animals getting abused in Ukraine, but the point here that I'm getting at is we'll give people a bit of an understanding. When you look at third world countries where animal abuse is rife, so take Romania, like Serbia, Africa, places like that, the common denominator in that is in those areas, the people are massively suffering as well. So it's generally like lower populations, obviously lower class, where the people are suffering, that the animals will suffer the most. So what we can't do and what we can never do, and a lot of people make a big mistake on this, especially in the animal rescue world, is they try and go into those areas and elevate the animal welfare above the humans. That's never going to happen. You're never going to be able to do it. You need to elevate the humans as well as the animals at the same time, because trying to have the humans here and the animals there, it's just going to create more resentment and more animosity towards those animals. So a big thing that we focus on is trying to raise the living conditions and the sustainability of the human population in these villages and in these areas, so that they can A, look after the animals, B, they generate respect for us, so they want to help us to look after these animals. And we're putting a lot of ownership back onto the civilian population within Ukraine to obviously to do that amongst these villages and amongst these small communities. And they're absolutely phenomenal. The people that we see and we work with that are obviously looking after the animals on the ground and stuff like that, it's truly remarkable. And you see the love and the compassion that they have for him. It's just, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, because a lot of people will be sitting there thinking, well, why don't you get the animals out? And the answer to that is simple. There's millions. We don't have millions of homes. We don't have millions of spaces. The biggest thing we can do is obviously raise the standards for the civilian population, so that they can obviously take care of the animals that they have within their communities and within their areas that we are unable to extract and to take obviously to new homes.
Absolutely. So that is a great way of looking at it. Well, it's solution oriented for one, which really animal welfare is people. That's what it's about. It's we need animal welfare because of not great people, and it is great people that make animal welfare happen. So by including the people and improving their situation, we can help the animals. And I think that is in a lot of countries and a lot of places where you'll find the animal welfare situations are, yeah, not as, the animals are not as well cared for, and the mindset, it changes as it does with the human economy and education, and that seems to be worldwide. So it's a very good point, because a lot of the areas that you're working in prior to the war, these people were, these people are well educated, a lot of them, and they're living first world lives, and it's just their lives overnight are literally changed upside down. So the first thing to do is to get them back on their feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, 100%, because you've got, so like, they've got no power, they've got no running water, they've got no
Right.
lighting. The only food that they've got is the food that gets given to them humanitarian aid wise. So what they're doing is they're sharing their supplies with their animals. Now, if I say their animals, I'm not sort of like, these villages aren't full of families with their dogs. You've got, and their cats, you've got one or two villages that stay in the village, and they're looking after 30, 40, 50 animals. So we need to make sure that we get enough food in there for the animals to take that strain of the animals taking their food that they're giving to them, obviously, so they can sustain themselves. So we're all about sustainability, because what we see a lot is, and again, this is not no judgment passed here or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just we think of things about on a sustainability basis. When you see people delivering 2 or 3 bags of dog food to a village on the front line, that's great. If it's 1 chew-hour, it's going to last it 6 months. Brilliant. If you've got 50, 60 dogs, you're spending 700-800 euros on fuel to go all the way from Poland all the way across to the east to give 4 or 5 days worth of food. Then you've got to do that one again, but they don't go back and do that one again. And you can't. It's not sustainable. It's not possible. So what we do is, on the flip side to how we operate, is when we go into a village, we don't just take them 1, 2, 3 bags of food. We take them 100, 200. We can do runs of up to 12 tons of food in one run, which some people don't even do in 6 months. And that's because we identify the fact of, right, this village is really dangerous. It's potentially going to get caught by the Russians. If this family's still here, these animals are still here, they need that food. They need to sustain themselves for 6 months to a year. So let's get this food in here for the villagers. They'll pass it around the other villages if the Russians take it, because they've got movement behind. So we've got maximum food getting delivered around, obviously by the people, if the worst case happens. And obviously, again, if it doesn't and they're holding out for months and months and months, our team don't have to risk our lives again to get in
Yeah.
there to drop off more food. So we're limiting our footprint on the ground. Because another big problem that you have is, when you go into these villages in the conflict areas on the front line, not only are you putting yourself at risk as a team, you're also endangering the civilians. And the reason why you're endangering the civilians is the Russians have got drones up, they've got ISTAR, so basically surveillance assets and stuff like that. They see a couple of vehicles moving into a village on the front line. They're sitting there thinking, who are they? They're then going to target those vehicles. If you're parked outside a civilian's house or near a civilian's house, that artillery comes in that could hit that building, kill those civilians. And that's because you have your footprint on the ground. So you need to make sure you're doing it tactically, you're doing it correct. You basically, that presence on the ground is minimalistic. So you're not only you then not putting your team at maximum risk, you're keeping the civilians as safe as you possibly can to get that food in, because it's
And
pointless
does
trying to
that,
get.
so would that discourage in any way the locals from working with you because they don't want to have your presence attracted to their area? Or do they realize that you're doing that you're their lifeline, or a strong part of their lifeline, and as well you do this with the knowledge that you have behind you? I mean, you have a lot of this knowledge and experience behind you. How are you feeling that reception from them?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, the thing is these, see, obviously, you know about obviously like conditioning and stuff like that. So when the first couple of days of the war, first couple of weeks of the war, these people under constant bombardment and stuff would have been absolutely petrified. They'd be terrified. But then as time goes on, you start to get conditioned to it, and it becomes, today could be my day. And it couldn't. You see the same with soldiers. that fear, that initial fear starts to obviously dwindle, and you get conditioned to it. But with them, it's like we're a lifeline for their animals that they love. Also, we do it in a way we're in, we're out, we don't sit there, we don't mess around. Like when we go into bad areas, it's literally like vehicle in, food off, we're gone. And we do it nice and fast, we get it done. We don't linger around, we don't faff about. And yeah, we move in certain ways, and we do certain things on the ground that obviously mitigate these risks and these threats to obviously the villagers. But yeah, no, they're really receptive of us, and we've got. I mean, we go back to some places that we went to at the obviously like months ago where they was getting absolutely hammered, and there was nearly under Russian control, or when there was under Russian control, and there was in a really bad way. And we met these people, and we helped them in their darkest of times. And then now we pop back there when obviously we're going through to go to a village because they've been liberated, and we're going to go to another one. And we see them, and they make us cake. They obviously hugs, like chai. They know obviously our
That's
needs.
awesome.
Come in, and make us go in the house with them. We sit down, we'll have a cup of chai with them. They'll like get the family photo albums out. They'll tell us everything, and like they'll make us bread and stuff like that. And it's like, you obviously like, no, you keep it. And they're like, no, Tom, you need to, come on, eat. And it's just, it's absolutely phenomenal. And we've made.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it makes them feel good as well. And if
Yeah.
they're in a position to do that, you're making a positive effect.
Yeah, and we've made a lot of friends, a
Yeah.
lot of really, really good friends. I mean, I get messages all the time from the people that we work with, and we help in Ukraine and stuff. Like I'll get a random WhatsApp message saying, "Hey Tom, how are you doing? How's things? I see you in Turkey, or see you doing this." And it's like, yeah, don't worry, the team's about. Obviously, your cycle's coming up in a week's time. They're like, yeah, no, we know you're going to come. I just wanted to make sure you was all right. And it's like, because obviously we work certain areas, certain time frames, because we know when we drop what off and when we need to go back, and stuff like that. So no, yes, we've got a lot of incredible friends there.
And that's what keeps it going. That is what it's all about. Good for you. So you did mention Turkey. Let's move on over to there. What is the situation in Turkey that you're specifically addressing? It's heavy there, eh? I work with the dog rescues in Turkey, and it's tough. Tell us
Yeah,
what you're doing.
it's horrific. So I was when the earthquake hit on the 6th of Feb, I was actually over to the east. I was out on the ground. When I come out of the conflict areas, because basically when you're in and around the red zones and stuff, the conflict areas, you have like no phone signal and stuff. And I come out, and I must have had about 200 messages telling me about obviously this earthquake that had hit, and was like, you need to get a team over there because obviously it's horrendous. And a couple of them were guys that I knew from like search and rescue and stuff like that. That had messaged me and was like, this is going to be like off the scale, like it's that bad. And I knew when I got a message from a couple of these individuals, it's not your standard. It was like horrific, unimaginable. And yeah, so sat there, made a few phone calls, and then I headed over there myself and one other while we obviously, because obviously we've got Ukraine, so we still need to facilitate Ukraine, the shelter, obviously supply drops, all that sort of stuff, the animals. So I needed to pull in a couple of guys that I had on leave that were obviously having a bit of time off. So we had to pull them in, move them across from around the world from where they was. And we got out there. We spent again, going back to humans and animals, had we have gone out there and just solely tried to focus on animals to start with, you'd be like banging your head against a brick wall, because there's people searching through rubbles trying to find family members, and you have a thing called, you have like a 5 to 7 day window, which basically means people under the rubble have generally got between 5 and 7 days that they can survive for on average. So for the first 5 to 7 days, it's rescue. Around about the 7th day, it becomes recovery. And what that means is the buildings will go through with machinery and basically recover the dead, because they're assuming at that point that everybody in there's dead. You always get your miracles. So we went out there and we spent the first 4 days, obviously working on rescues of humans and obviously recovery of family members, unfortunately, which was heartbreaking, and focusing on saving the people and helping the people that were trapped in the buildings. then when the government turned to recovery, that was our time then to go into obviously our primary role, which is animal rescue. But how that helped us is the connections that we made, saving the people and helping the
Right.
people. They then facilitated us with the things that we do. And there's buildings now that they won't let people in apart from us and the Turkish team and the Turkish guys that we work with out on the ground there. So we're the only people that they'll let in there. It's like it's cordoned off to everybody, to all emergency services, the buildings that you can't go in there. But because they've seen our work obviously over the last 4 weeks, they're just like, yep. And we have the police come to us, the military come to us. There's an animal here, the building's really bad, do you think you can save it? And yeah, so now we just go into these buildings, and we basically rescue the animals that are trapped and locked inside the buildings with no food, no water. And it's 4 weeks on now. We have a look, exactly a month today.
Yeah.
And my guys, obviously, I left Turkey early hours this morning. I'm currently in France at the moment for a load of meetings and interviews and stuff. But my guys rescued, obviously, animals today from a month on that have been stuck in an apartment with no food, no water, in damaged buildings. And we got around probably about 110 animals out of these places, which is yeah, it's incredible. The Turkish guys we're working with have been absolutely phenomenal. So we kind of like joined forces, which is brilliant, because you always want that familiar face, that local face. Yeah. It's vital especially in countries like Turkey, to have that local civilian. So we've got a couple of great guys that have been working alongside us, and yeah, doing incredible work. I'm incredibly proud of what we've done in Turkey.
And they would also be beneficial just in knowing, even though it's demolished, but knowing the areas and knowing the buildings and know what was where, and just knowing the lay of the land and having connections with government and that kind of thing as well. Where are you using?
Oh, so our guys, the guys we got are from we work with from a completely different city.
Okay. Right.
They're from a completely different city. We made a lot of connections with the military, obviously the fire brigade, the local authorities, because we was digging and rescuing people, like beside them. And then because we've been there and they've seen the stuff that we do, like the special forces police, the army. They see what we can do, and then we get them now coming to us. They'll come to where we're obviously situated and where we're staying. They'll come to the team and be like, guys, there's this cat. It's like on this roof here. It's really bad. We need you to come and get it. And it's like, all right. So they come to us, and our Instagram and Facebook's kind of turned into like a 999 or 112 or whatever comes through from emergency services line, where we just get fired messages with information that the team remotely collates, pass it on to us, and then from owners basically who had to abandon their animals, and well, not abandon, I say abandon, that's the wrong word, unfortunately couldn't take their animals with them, and they're obviously stuck in the buildings. And I'm actually going to touch up on that now, because there'll be some people sat listening to this saying, oh, I could never leave my animal and stuff like that. And my immediate straight point blunt response to that is, you either do or you're dead. You go into those buildings that, like, most people that have that, in fact 99.9% of people that have that thought in their head, if I took them to a building and said, right, come on, me and you are climbing that to get that cat, they'd be like, I'm not doing that. And I'd be like, so you won't do that when there's no earthquake going on, nothing's falling, but you expect someone to run around a high-rise building when the roof's falling down on them, the stairways are, the walls are, and they've got to grab their kids, and you expect them to try and find a terrified cat that it takes me 3.5 hours to, with a full team in an apartment during calm, and you want it when all hell's breaking loose. Not going to happen.
Nobody knows what they would do in that situation, because it's impossible to envision and know. We would all do what we think is what we can accomplish and the best we can do at that moment. And there's no point in judging that.
No, the thing is like, but this is the thing though, and it's like, you ain't getting those cats. You ain't finding them. When that's coming down, you are not finding them. It's pitch black, roof's coming down, the walls coming down. It's insane. I mean, we was there when the 6.5 earthquake hit, about a week and a half ago, something like that, and that brought down a load of buildings. And my guys frequently say, when we're in these buildings and we see the damage, and we're like, this is bad, like this building's bad, and I mean, it's like leaning like this, and main structural beams have gone. There's still walls crumbling as we're moving because of the slightest shift. And then the lads are like, imagine being in, and these are battle hardened soldiers that are like, imagine being in this when this is coming down. And it's like, and it's just heartbreaking because the people that make those comments on like social media and stuff, their owners and all these people are following us in the hope that on our list, when we go through it, we'll rescue their animal and they'll get that phone call. And they see these comments and like, these are families that have lost. So we have a guy who comes to our camp every day, a Turkish man. He's about 60 years old. He basically, we first met him, he lived around the corner. He just sat on a chair like this outside of a basically destroyed house. He'd sit there all day, every day. And one day we invited him to have a cup of tea with us. And we got a translator to translate obviously what had happened. And basically his family was killed in the building. And unfortunately, they've not been recovered yet from the building where they was killed. So he sits out there all day, every day. He has done for weeks. We met this guy pretty much right at the start. And we've become friends with him. We got him a tent, we got him a sleeping bag, we got him a roll mat. He comes every morning for a cup of tea, he comes every evening for a cup of tea, sits by our fire to get warm. But now what he does, he never used to speak or never used to say anything, as you can imagine. The guy's lost everything, his house, his family, and all that sort of stuff. And now he comes and he sits with us, he talks to us. He actually brings bread every morning and every evening. It's like a little part of our little community out there, but just him as an example of what he has lost. And then there's many people out there that have lost everything, but we managed to reunite them with that cat, that dog, that is the only thing they've got left in it. It means the absolute world to them. It means the world to them. And then they're seeing comments from idle-minded people that just haven't got a clue because they just spend their lives sat on a sofa looking at Facebook, that are just basically stabbing these people in the heart when they've already lost everything. It's just, there's a time and a place, and naivety.
And that's one of the issues with social media. There's just people who they're not part of the solution and they're part of the problem, and they just need to understand that if you're not going to be that is just an ongoing issue with social media on so many levels. I mean, there's probably stories everybody even listening has that you just get beat up. I mean, even just down to people helping people and animals in different countries. It doesn't mean that they're not helping ones close to home as well, or that they're not supporting. And as long as people have a passion, this is a big topic actually in a lot of the interviews that I do. It's just a matter of finding a passion that's important to you and something that's important to you, and what your skills are and how you can use your skills to help and to be part of the solution. And if it's not the same way somebody else would do it, or it's not the same mission or passion somebody else has, who cares? Just go do it. Go do it yourself, and don't worry about what other people are doing.
Oh, exactly.
Just do your thing. And so that is absolutely unacceptable. But having said that, we're going to have all those links in the show notes. So please go there, people, with positive comments. If you can donate, if you can help in any way. And also remember that sharing and posting positive comments and support is really appreciated. So if you can just even take some time to do that, and all the links will be in the show notes. I wanted to get back to also the shelter that you had, because we talked about that in our first chat, Tom. So that shelter that you have, how's that going there? Because people can go and sponsor animals from that shelter. So you've not only supporting keeping the animals where they are and providing the people and the animals with supplies that they need where they are, but you also do have a shelter where some of them are coming to. And that was put up, sorry, right in, there's not one in Turkey, there's one in Ukraine, right?
Yeah. So our shelter's in Ukraine. Yeah, no, it's going brilliant, fantastic. Got a great team of local Ukrainians that obviously that have as like kennel staff, and obviously they take care of the animals. That's headed up by obviously a couple of Western civilian people that we have obviously working within the organization, and now they're doing absolutely phenomenal. Our shelter team and the veterinary team we have there, yeah, they're doing absolutely brilliant. And I mean, the thing is like I I couldn't do it. Not because I don't love animals. Obviously, I love animals to pieces and love spending time around animals. But like for me, the type of person I'm an action person. I need to be out on the ground. I need to be saving that life, which is obviously vital. But what's more vital is the work that the shelter staff do and the veterinary team do. Is like what we do
Takes a
is
village.
we get them, and then they to me they do the hard work, because we spoke about it before at the obviously before we started the interview, was like the behaviorals and stuff like that, and obviously the trauma that these animals have faced. And when we go and we get these animals, like a lot of them, they're fear aggressive, and they're absolutely terrified, and they're just shells of them, their old selves. And we can't pick these animals up. We have to like basically we have to restrain and get them in, and then we get like zero interaction with them because they just want to bite us because they're scared, and we don't have the time to obviously coax them around. We can't sit there for 2-3 hours trying to show a dog that we're good people. We have to get the animal, get them to safety, and then we go back 2 days later when we come back from another op, and we just see that very same dog, and we go over there, it's like licking you to death, and you just like the work that the team at the shelter do is just, it's absolutely brilliant. It truly is. And I
Yeah,
always say,
and that gets back to everybody having their own skill and what they're good at and what they want to do, what part of the whole process. It's a full process. And
right,
it's
exactly.
amazing that you've managed to have that work, because it really does take everybody working together, because you can't, like you said, you can't get every animal out of these areas, but when you do, you have to have somewhere to take them where they're going to be able to get the care that they need.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, I've lost you. They're,
Oh, did you-
can you still see me?
I can still see you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Someone tried to call me.
We can hear you. Oh, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
that, yeah, you're right there. I mean, it does it takes a whole process, and we got a large team. Obviously, we've got the ground team, the star teams. We've got obviously the shelter staff. We've got people that work behind the scenes on obviously like admin and stuff like that. And yeah, no, it's brilliant. And the thing is with obviously the shelter staff, like they've had it hard this winter with obviously the temperatures dropping to like -17, -18. They've got no power, they've got no like hot water, no heating, no lighting. I mean, that's the same all across Ukraine. But the difference between like our team there is they don't come from Ukraine. They're not used to these winters. I mean, Nicole, bless her, she's from Australia, so she's
Oh,
used
yeah.
to warm weather, and all of a sudden she's like
Oh,
-18 with no heat and no electricity and stuff like that. But she's an absolute trooper. Like they dig out blind, and they do incredible. And I mean, I was back there. So even with obviously Turkey going on and stuff, like I've still got a huge like Ukraine. The focus hasn't changed at all with Ukraine. Turkey's made no effect on that whatsoever. So I'm obviously just controlling the two teams. So I popped back out to Ukraine last week,
uh-huh.
just to pop in and obviously see the team, see the animals, just to see how obviously they're getting on, sort a few bits out in Ukraine before going back to Turkey, because obviously there's a very small window in Turkey to save these animals. And what we'll start to find over the next week or so is when we're getting into these apartments and buildings, we will start to find deceased animals that have obviously starved to death or obviously died of dehydration and stuff like that. So the focus for like the next couple of weeks is obviously on the ground wise is Turkey, so that window doesn't close on us without us being there, if that makes sense. And
It
then
does. It does. So before we started this interview too, you talked a little bit about some of the laws in Turkey that may not work in the better interest of the animals or the animal uh, owners, pet parents.
yeah,
Are you finding any challenges there?
yeah. So basically, you can't enter a building or an apartment. Even obviously, there's a trapped animal there. You can't enter the building or the apartment without the owner's permission. So that's one thing we come up against. Thankfully, 99% of the time, obviously the owners are like, yep, you can go in, no problem, not an issue. Sometimes like basically we'll have to go in through the stairwell because that's like the 15th floor, but then they won't let us break the door to get in and get the cat. And it's like, well, do you know what I mean? If we don't get in and get the cat, like, we need to take the door off. I can't climb the outside of a 15-story building. That's just
Yeah.
ridiculous, especially with the aftershocks and the tremors and stuff like that you're getting inside of Turkey. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have climbed the exterior of buildings, but only like three floors. We won't really go higher than that because if you get a tremor any higher than that, you drop in, and it's too dangerous for the guys. So yeah, so we sometimes come across that. We know there's a cat stuck in an apartment, and the owners won't let us do what we need to do to get the cat.
The owners won't, or the law won't?
No, the owners won't. So basically, it's the same thing. So if the owners say no, it's because basically you've got to have, by law, you've got to have the owner's permission
Right.
in order to do it. So without the owner's permission, we can't do it. And we've had a couple of instances where obviously the team's there, they're primed, prepped, we've had a look every way, and we're like, right, we know the animal's in here. We need to go through your door. And they're like, nope, because my clothes and things in there. It's like, well,
We don't want your clothes.
yeah, the animal like more important than your clothes. And I mean, like I say, this has only happened a couple of times.
I was gonna say, yeah,
The
that's an odd one.
vast majority have obviously been on it and been good. So, but yeah, we've come across that a couple of times. We found a workaround now, and those animals have been saved. We haven't just left them. So
Good for you. Good. Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, super informative. Always great to talk to you, because it's just a wealth of information that I think a lot of people not only want to learn, but need to. We're getting the info straight from the ground. So thank you so much, Tom. Anything else that you want to share with us? I know you probably got to sleep or a million things to do. I just love talking to you, though. It's so great. Yeah, it's really just a shining example of someone using their exact skills to make a difference. That's really what you are.
We just got to do what we do, haven't we? And like one thing I'm going to say as well is you mentioned earlier about people have like their different passions and stuff like that. And when you see people making the comments that they make, and as you know, one of the biggest ones is, oh, why do you help animals and not people? And I always use this as an example to people. And I just say, well, you're in love with your wife. What do you say when people tell you they don't like your wife? And it's like, well, I love her. And it's like, exactly. And people love animals over humans. You can't help who or what you love. So all you can do is respect it and support it. You wouldn't like it if people insulted those that you love. So don't do it the other way.
Yeah. Do what you can do and where your passion hits, and make a difference, and other people can either hop on board or not.
Oh, that's it. What I will say is there's going to be some good videos coming out
Yay.
in the next sort of like couple of weeks and stuff from Turkey, which if people want to see what an angry cat can do, they're gonna see a
That's
lot
awesome.
of that.
Yeah, so that'll be on Facebook and other social media, so everyone can follow you there. The videos are great.
Be on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, because we've got some because these cats are terrified. They're absolutely petrified, and they're like, they go hard when you try and go into the home and you try and get them. They've been there 3-4 weeks on their own, and they come in hard. I mean, we had one cat that,
and it's so sad.
It is. It's heartbreaking. But then, if you look on the post the other days, we got one of the cats wiped out half the team. So 4 guys. Basically, one of them ripped open all his face, bit 2 others, ripped one of my guys' arms open. I managed to get hold of it, got it in the crate, good to go. And then I went and saw it 4 days later at the private clinic that we'd sent it to. And if you look on Facebook, you'll see the pictures of her cuddling me and stuff like that. Completely different cat, and it's just like, absolutely amazing. And I saw her, and she like saw me, and I just like caught her hand. So I was like, hello, like thinking like this is an angry cat, because they're all like quite feisty, and she was just warming up against me and just cuddling me.
It's illogical when you think about it. When anybody's put in a situation that they feel threatened and uncomfortable, and they've had their life, threatened, and then they get somewhere where they're comfortable and happy. That's humans. Every single species does that.
No,
That
100%.
again gets, dogs, assessing a dog in a shelter is just
100, no, 100%, 100%. But what I will say is, you give me a really aggressive dog any day of the week over an angry cat, because wow, there's been some challenges. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
we saved we saved them. So nice,
Good for
good.
you. Well, yeah, we're all going to look forward to those videos now and go check out that the cat the cat that made the big change. We'll all go there, check it out. Those are the most awesome stories. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
Have
You take care, and I'll see you again soon, no doubt.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And this has been Billie Groom with Tom from Breaking the Chains on effective animal advocacy on the All About Animals radio show.